The rain was falling heavily that night. 12-year-old Daniel sat quietly on the wooden floor of their small room, hugging his knees tightly. The roof was leaking again, and drops of water kept falling into a rusty bucket his mother had placed in the middle of the room. Plink, plink, plink. That sound had become the music of their poverty. Daniel looked at his mother. She was lying on the bed, weak and coughing badly. Since his father died 2 years ago in a terrible accident, life had become harder than anyone could imagine. His mother tried her best to provide for them by selling vegetables in the market, but sickness had taken away her strength. Now there was no money, no food, no help. Daniel stood up slowly and went to the small window. Outside, he could see other houses glowing with bright lights and laughter. People were eating dinner. Families were together. But inside their house, darkness and silence filled the air. He whispered softly, "God, are you really there?" Tears rolled down his cheeks. "I don't have a father anymore. If you are real, please be my father." Behind him, his mother heard his words. Though weak, she forced a small smile. "Daniel," she called gently. Daniel rushed to her side. "Yes, Mama." She held his hand and said slowly, "Never forget this. When people fail you, when the world turns its back on you, God becomes your helper." Daniel nodded, but deep inside he wondered how God could help them when there was no food in the house. That night, they slept hungry. The next morning, Daniel woke up early. His stomach was empty, but something inside him pushed him to pray. He knelt beside the bed and whispered, "God, my Father, if you truly hear me, please help my mother. I don't want her to die." After praying, he went outside. He had no plan. He just walked. As he passed through the street, he noticed a small crowd gathered near a supermarket. A big delivery truck had arrived, and workers were unloading bags of rice and cartons of food. Suddenly, one of the workers slipped, and a carton fell, scattering food everywhere. People rushed forward to pick things from the ground. Daniel stood far away, watching. Then an elderly man noticed him. "Boy, why are you standing there? Come and help." Daniel quickly ran over and started helping the workers gather the scattered food. He worked hard for almost an hour. When everything was finally arranged again, the elderly man called him. "Young boy, you worked harder than everyone here. What is your name?" "Daniel, sir." The man smiled kindly. "Daniel, take this." He handed him a small bag filled with rice, bread, and canned food. Daniel's eyes widened. "For me?" "Yes, take it home." Daniel couldn't believe it. He carried the bag and ran home as fast as he could. "Mama, Mama!" His mother struggled to sit up. "What happened?" Daniel dropped the bag on the floor, smiling widely. "God answered our prayer." Tears kissed his mother's eyes as she looked at the food. At that moment, she whispered softly, "God, my Father, my helper, thank you." Weeks passed. Daniel continued helping at the supermarket whenever deliveries arrived. The elderly man who first noticed him was the store manager. He watched Daniel carefully. The boy never stole, never complained, always worked hard. One afternoon, the manager called him again. "Daniel, I heard your story. I want to help you." Daniel looked confused. "How, sir? I will pay your school fees." Daniel froze. For a moment, he thought he had heard wrongly. "My school fees?" "Yes." Daniel burst into tears. That evening, when he told his mother, she cried harder than she had cried since his father died. But this time, they were tears of hope. Years passed. Daniel studied hard, very hard. Whenever life became difficult, he remembered that night in the leaking house, when he prayed, "God, my Father, my helper." That prayer became his strength. Many years later, Daniel stood on a big stage wearing a graduation gown. He had become one of the best students in the university. When it was time to give his speech, he looked at the crowd and said, "I grew up without a father. Life was hard. There were days my mother and I slept without food." The audience became silent. But one night, I prayed and called God my Father and my helper. And from that day, my life began to change. He paused and smiled. Sometimes help does not come the way we expect. Sometimes God sends help us through people. In the front row sat the elderly supermarket manager and Daniel's mother, both smiling proudly. Daniel continued, "So if you are listening to my story today and you feel alone, remember this." He raised his voice slightly. "You are never alone. God is still a father to the fatherless, and he is still a helper to those who trust him." The entire hall burst into applause. Even when the world abandons you, never forget, God can still become your father and your helper. If this story touched your heart, please don't forget to subscribe for more true life stories.